Hello, 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 beautiful people, and welcome back to another live experience with me, your host, Leah C. Murphy, the CEO of Career Gems for the Journey. We are deep into the January months now, or January 2026, not months. And because a new year presents opportunities for us to have new conversations, I think there's also an opportunity to remind us of the things that we need to preserve and keep safe as we think about navigating the world that we're in today. And without making too much of a derailing kind of direction, I want to make sure that we talk just about mental health in the workplace. I know that I've gotten lots of DMs and comments and just references from many clients that are saying, I'm just trying to figure out how to keep it all together in this season. And when we talk about navigating your second act of life, generally, that comes along with some new challenges, not just new challenges, but new opportunities for us to put systems in place and for us to think about where our priorities and where we need to be investing our energy. So I wanted to remind us of that. And I want to make sure that we think about mental health and well being as the support system that's absolutely necessary to be successful in career. You really can't have one without the other. And I have a couple personal stories that I want to share to make sure that you know that you may not be alone as you're navigating changes in your feeling around your mental health and your overall well-being. So before we jump right into it, I love to know who's joining us live. I appreciate all of you who are riding with us live. Please do drop your city in the chat. And a little birdie told me that people join live but don't drop their city in the chat. And I'm okay with that because everybody has to do what makes sense for them. But I appreciate you all, even if you don't choose to drop your city in the chat. I appreciate you. And if you are listening to the replay, I love that for you. I love that for us too. I really do appreciate the fact that you took the time to be with us in any way, shape, or form. That means a lot to me. And it also tells me that the way that we've been working and the things that we're talking about continue to matter to you. So I'm really just heartened by that. So, as we think about navigating this topic of mental health in the workplace, and we've been kind of dancing around and like really getting into this topic more and more as we do work here at Career Gems for the Journey. And it helps us to be reminded that we're all in different places and stages when we're navigating our mental health and well being. And that is okay. And I think that's the part that I constantly need to remind myself of because at the time that we're recording this, we are in a snowstorm or the remnants of a snowstorm in the city of Philadelphia, where I am based out of, where we're located. And the remnants of that snowstorm mean that children are not at school. And I am still required to work. My husband is still required to work, but the children are here also, and we're navigating what that looks like. It was a real throwback moment to remote school during the lockdown season, and that was a struggle for me. It was a struggle for a lot of us. I know a lot of people feel like they were able to come out of that season, come out of that lockdown experience, having a deeper appreciation for teachers, for social workers, for school service providers, for administrators, because the children absolutely being home and on Zoom and trying to figure out assignments and asynchronous work and all of those things. If you are navigating any of those thoughts, any of those feelings that go along with having to be in this position again, I understand. And it doesn't mean that you won't do it. It doesn't mean that it won't get done. It doesn't mean that you don't absolutely think your children's education is valuable, right? We're not even getting into the nonsense of what other narratives could be. We're just saying that it's real and that making that adjustment and being able to pivot and shift as professionals is something that we've been asked to do multiple times. And this morning, I was asked to do that again. And there's some real feelings that go along with it. So as we think about navigating mental health generally, we're all in different places because we're all navigating our own lives. So we want to specifically talk about mental health in the workplace and the parts that we're kind of not saying out loud. And when we don't say it out loud, oftentimes people believe that it's not important or I'm struggling alone. And I want to really remove any of that stigma. I'm glad that we're a part of this conversation and we can use our platform for this purpose. So when I say corporate America, I mean workplaces generally. And that may mean nonprofit spaces, that may mean public servants, that may mean academia. It is a wide range. So I want to make sure that I acknowledge that some workplaces really label just exhaustion as part of the game, as part of the process. We might really think through burnout and the remnants of burnout being driven by this is just the way work happens, and we're all kind of required to push through. And oftentimes, those signals come from the highest levels of the organization. And there's a cultural norm that has kind of been established when folks start to behave in the ways that they work, the ways that they communicate, the cadence at which they communicate, the time that emails get sent, the time that deliverables and expectations are expected to be returned. And this, again, harkens back to that lockdown window of time where we were all working from home and trying to figure out what the normal was going to be, and oftentimes that required us to push past limits that we had had in our personal life otherwise, or maybe some balance that we were able to create. So as we're thinking about now hybrid work, there may be some versions of remote work that are still very robust in certain industries, but then there's also, a lot of folks who are going back to the office and managing a hybrid schedule and trying to maintain the flexibility of being able to work remotely as a benefit that they see as critical to their mental health, but also critical to their productivity, critical to them being able to have some sort of autonomous time to be able to do the work that is necessary beyond the meetings, beyond the everybody in the room, beyond the ideation, beyond the hustle. A lot of times being able to work remote is a definitive way that you can get the focus time that you need in order to deliver the products, right? Deliver what we're looking for and to meet your objectives. So I want to acknowledge that those things are necessary and you know what's best overall for your needs, and trying to figure out how to navigate the new normal and the workplace that we're navigating today and keep your well-being and your mental health in mind is something that we've all been tasked with doing as an individual. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about my own experience, but the key is we don't want to power past our limits. We don't want to treat anxiety or exhaustion as the only source or identifier of commitment or dedication. Because the truth is, chronic stress is not a badge of honor. Burnout is not proof of dedication. And sometimes just this idea of sacrificing mental health on the short term means that we pay for it on the back end in a way that is we didn't realize. So often mental health challenges at work don't look dramatic. They don't look like big events. They often show up really quiet. They show up like dreading to get the emails done before the workday starts. The feeling of overwhelm that sometimes we are tasked with something that used to feel manageable that is not anymore. Avoiding meetings or conversations with specific individuals or on specific topics. And sometimes just feeling emotionally disconnected. And it sometimes can mean that we're thinking about work all the time, so much so that we don't have the presence we once did in our normal life. And sometimes we tell ourselves, well, everyone is stressed, everyone is this busy, I should be able to handle it. But when the stress becomes chronic and the burnout becomes inevitable, it stops being situational and it can become harmful. And I remember having some of these feelings myself. I was actually tasked at one point in my career when I was working for a large organization to build a wellness program for the company. And I'm laughing because the irony of it was just mind boggling. To build a wellness program for the company, and I did the research. I spent about 3 or 4 months going and doing benchmarking. I reached out to our HR benefits team. I benchmarked other companies, tons and tons of data and analysis, information that comes along from surveys that employees had submitted, and some organizations that had kind of reached out to us to say that we want to provide wellness benefits and resources into your organization once I put the call out. So I did this work and I was really excited for the work. I was excited to be doing something that I felt like had a real purpose inside an organization, to have felt like I got the assignment where I got to do work that I thought was meaningful, would positively impact people. It was for a large organization, and I was going to be compensated at my regular compensation. And there's some perception that well-being work or work tied to the needs of individuals just doesn't get acknowledged in the same way. So I felt like I had hacked the system. So I was excited to have hacked the system. And then what I then learned through having great conversations with my direct leadership and then a lot of my peers, I presented this robust program to the executive leadership team. And their response was overwhelmingly positive. I was so excited to have done the work that I knew would benefit others in such a significant way that I like had the dazzling eye effect. A week later, I got a message from my manager that they thought the work that I'd done was exemplary and the HR data that supported the need for the program was still there and very strong. However, the company was not going to move forward with the program. And I was basically befuddled, right? Befuddled, confounded, right? We didn't understand. Why wouldn't we move forward? What's the challenge? And what happened was they decided that the programming wasn't the problem, it was the price tag. And because the organization had decided that the price tag was going to be too high, they just decided that they weren't going to move forward. And that happens often, where projects get killed or people make decisions that are, we're just not going to make this move. We're not going to make this choice. And oftentimes when projects get killed or things die because it's not the right business decision, you can roll with those punches. Because for those of us who work in large organizations or work for big companies or work for large institutions, nonprofits, research institutions, or even academia, these things happen where things get introduced and then they die. That's just a normal course of business. But this thing that was specifically called out as a need for the employees that I got to work with on the everyday basis, and a big part of what people were expressing is just a path that they were on that was going to lead them to burnout and to overwhelm. And I got to see the data. I got to hear directly from people to understand where their pain points were and where they were experiencing difficulty in their ways of working. And once I knew it, I couldn't unknow that this is what people were dealing with, struggling with. So now I know, I do the work, I do the research, and ultimately the company decides they're not interested because they didn't want to spend the money. And it was this reminder that I have seen, and if anybody is with us live and has worked for large organizations, we've seen dollars get spent on a lot of things. Books that stay on the shelf that nobody ever reads. We've seen dollars get spent on needing to destroy product because it was beyond a code date or there was a problem with an ingredient. So we had to spend the dollars on destruction. We've seen dollars get spent, tons of money on swag, on shirts, on bags, on all kinds of things that are very exciting in the moment. They are representative of something for the organization, but not necessarily an investment that employees are going to benefit from. So what it reminded me of is, yes, the data can tell you that it absolutely needs and is important for you to focus on your well-being, and the company can still not be willing to invest. And that comes down to a business decision. And it's not to say that one company is better than the other at this. It's to say that really focusing on your mental health and well-being has always been an inside job. And I think it was the glimmer of hope of the potential that someone else besides me was also thinking about my own health and my well-being. And I was doing it on behalf of other employees, people that I identified with, people that I could see myself in, people that I knew needed the support that I was going to be able to develop and provide should the company have moved forward. But ultimately, when they said no, it just reminded me that your mental health and well-being is an inside job. And what does that actually mean in real life? How does that translate? What do we need to do? I think it always has been. And there were moments in the narrative of large organizations where they were giving this commitment to being very much invested in people's well-being, physical health and mental health. And now we're starting to see evidence that has not been sustained, certainly not coming into 2026. So I want to just go a little bit deeper because women are often particularly hit hard by the additional layers of invisible labor. And sometimes that happens in their household. And it often happens when they are at work. They are asked to manage the emotions of other people. They are asked to smooth over conflict. And I say they, we are asked to pick up slack. We're asked to mentor people quietly. We're asked to navigate our own stress and to de escalate situations. And many women feel this additional pressure to appear unflappable, to appear grateful, to not be called emotional, to not be called aggressive, to not be called anything that could be a career derailer. And that comes down to the foundation of your mental health. We often want to be perceived as easy to work with, resilient, unbothered. So instead of getting the support that's necessary in order for our employees to do the things that are necessary to run the business successfully, it just gets internalized as additional strain. And the result is women don't often take the work and separate it from their personal lives. We are not able often to leave the unhealthy work environments or concepts because we have this perception that this is our responsibility and this is just the job. And oftentimes, I can say for myself, it's not because I feel like I was weak or because I didn't recognize that there might be a disproportionate burden that was being placed on me versus my coworkers when I was working in corporate. It was that I had internalized that this is just the way things have to be. And that led me to a place where I had to figure out, do I need to stay in this organization or do I need to leave because it is causing more friction or it lacks the ability for me to be well and navigate all that I am being held accountable for or responsible for. And that doesn't mean leaving career altogether. That means finding an environment that worked better for me. Now, oftentimes women leave because their mental health can no longer carry what the system refuses to fix. I have personally seen a record number of women taking some form of short term disability, FMLA, or well being breaks. And that was really coming out of lockdown season where expectations were high, challenges were innumerable, and it did not allow us to focus on our overall well being. So many people had to take a step back from work in order to reset and recalibrate. And I think that that is important as a reminder, as an option for many folks. But what we're also seeing is lots of people are being pushed out of the workforce right now. There was a New York Times article around the connections that Black women are making specifically in connecting with one another after experiencing job loss or separation. A number of those people are in private sector work, but lots of them are in government roles. And because the government roles are being eliminated and major shifts and purging are happening because of the administration that we're in, Black women are now spending time networking and connecting with one another to make sure that they are giving each other leads and supporting one another during these times. And I wonder sometimes if we see the benefits of taking a step back to be able to reevaluate what makes sense in our well-being and in our health. And oftentimes we don't get to choose because we're being compelled by something else that's happening in our organization that is completely out of our control. So there is this myth oftentimes that we should just be more resilient. One of the most harmful messages that women receive is this idea that the solution to burnout is personal resilience, as if the problem that we are navigating is because you're not strong enough, or you're not capable enough, or you're not organized enough, or you're not positive enough. Now, I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. Resilience matters, but resilience without a system approach or without boundaries that allow you to take care of your mental health and well-being can lead to self-harm. It can be destructive to you. If the environment is consistently unsustainable, the solution is not for you to toughen up. The solution is to readdress our expectations, resources, and support systems. Because you are not failing because you're struggling. The reason why and the root cause for your struggle may be that the system is failing you. There's this huge trend that I've been seeing around what millennials have been navigating in their own like identity crisis. Who am I now and what does it look like for me to be able to be successful? How do I redefine success? Because I did all the things right. I went to school, I got the degree, I got the job that I was supposed to get. I work for a big corporation. I took on the student loan debt. I got the graduate degree. And now I was supposed to be able to move into a life of consistency and stability and be able to buy a house and start a life that I was looking forward to. And now what we've been thrown into is not that. Those are systems problems that are not driven by you not being tough enough. You did what you were asked to do, and now still we are being asked to do more. So sometimes protecting your mental health just means you're making adjustments, and you're making adjustments to the reality that you're navigating today. And the idea that you have to be seamless and unflappable at all times may be just the pressure relief valve that is holding you under a ton of pressure. It is absolutely necessary to have spaces where you can be at total relaxation mode, that you can turn your brain off, that you do not have to be on, that you feel safe, that you're able to be in community with people, and that you're also able to hear from your peers and make sure that you feel like, oh, I'm not navigating these challenges alone. The isolation and the loneliness is what I think is really driving so many of us to feel that these times are tougher than ever. So it's not just about setting boundaries or clarifying workload. We need supports. We need internal support system, and in some cases, we need external support system. And I will say this gently: staying in an environment that is slowly harming you doesn't represent loyalty. It can represent self sabotage. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody can step away and quit a job. It doesn't mean that everyone can make an immediate transition. It means that we're bringing it to our awareness, and we are thinking about the systems that we need to put in place to take care of our mental health and well-being. And we're also choosing the environments that we introduce ourselves to that will help to regulate our immune systems, regulate our emotions, bring healthy communication and relationships and community into our lives. So choosing yourself in that way, and we talked about this a lot last week, does not mean you failed. It means you listened to your body. It means you listened to yourself, and now you are at a place where you're willing to make changes based on your needs from years of listening to yourself. And maybe in 2026, you just started listening to yourself a little bit better. And I want to give you a shout out if that's you. I want to make sure that I give you the acknowledgement that's necessary, because oftentimes only the sacrifice of yourself is celebrated. And I want to start to celebrate when you are taking excellent care of yourself, when you are prioritizing your mental health and well being, and when the evidence is clear. Now, people will get uncomfortable. There will be some people who don't like you taking excellent care of yourself because they benefited tremendously from you being completely self sacrificing. And I understand that that can be difficult because your relationships may change. But I think the people who are really invested in you being well are those who want you to be around for many, many, many years and decades to come. And those people will bubble up to the top. So if you're navigating a workplace right now that does not align to your mental health and well being, and you need 2026 as a justification, as a reason to reset your own expectations for the level of maintenance and management that you give to your mental health and well being, I want to make sure that you hear me say this: permission granted. Permission granted to prioritize your mental health and well being. And I am going to be on this journey with you. I am committed to doing things differently in 2026. And I'm committed to learning from the past mistakes that young Leah made 10 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever the number of years ago. I'm committed to learning from those mistakes, to honoring and to acknowledging that's what she needed to do at that time. That's what she thought she needed to do. But now a new version has been unlocked. A new character has been unlocked in 2026. And there's a balancing act that we're navigating because we're in a world that is unprecedented, and we're navigating challenges that many of us are seeing for the first time, and we're navigating them with less support systems and resources in our workplaces. So that is really why the Career and Care Summit exists. I have to close with this. Your mental health and well-being is an inside job, and it's the foundation for your career and for your life. So that's why we created the Career and Care Summit, because women deserve spaces where their ambition and their mental health and well-being can coexist together, can be in the place and make sure that the needs get met consistently, that the community that they're building is one that is going to be enriching, and the relationships that come from participating or showing up for the Career and Care Summit are those that carry you through this next phase of your life and your career. We would love to see you in the building on March 21st, 2026 at the Community College of Philadelphia to join us in person for the Career and Care Summit. You can see the QR code on the screen here to take advantage of going to buy your tickets, or you can go to our website at gemsforthejourney.org. That's gemsforthejourney.org to go and get your ticket today. I promise you, if you're going to be in this room, if you're going to be in any room in 2026, this is the one that you should choose. If this conversation resonated with you, I want to make sure that we stay connected, but I also want to make sure that you share this with someone who you know needs to hear this message. Sharing this kind of content and acknowledging someone's needs can be exactly what they're looking for in this moment, but it's also the highest sign that you care about someone else, that you know their needs need to be met. So share this with them, invite them to join you at the Career and Care Summit, and I will see you there in person, because someone needs to hear this. And I think the right people, this message is going to continue to get to the right people. So remember, you are allowed to take care of yourself. Your mental health and well-being is an inside job. Going outside to get the right support systems in place in order to do that work is absolutely within your power. And I want to encourage you to use all of those external resources, including mental health professionals, in whatever way makes sense for you. And I want you to give yourself the permission and the privilege to make your journey work for you. That's the only way we can arrive at the destination of success, is we do the work to make our journeys work for us. So I appreciate you riding with me. I am excited to be here with you, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, same time, same place at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care of yourself.